So last episode I cliffhanged on a big door that we found had certain combinations to open to get to our actual destination. Continuing from that, we find a few more rooms ahead, one of which is Zahzim's study. So we get his journal to peer through. The girl I saved a while back turns out to be the object of Zahzim's desire, which later turned over into obsession, because that's how villains do. And she's also one of the campaign's backstory of there being over 10k gods. Her being perhaps one of time. I don't think we ever got a full explanation on that. Zahzim's enemy is also the weird crustacean mind flayers. He takes from them 3 trinkets. 1 a dagger, 1 a jewel, and 1 helmet. I don't recall what the dagger does. I think the jewel is like the pre-lenses form for the helmet. Same color and make, perhaps. It's a helmet that actually is enough to fit tentacles, like a mind flayer's head would. The helmet I recall, because Artificer uses that more than once during our adventures. This bad boy, when puts on, detects living brains in the vicinity of the area. One problem with the first usage? The diary also speaks of these larval state brain worms that can go in through the skin and eat your brain. So, oh goody, boar worms from Splatterhouse 3. Once again, veering away from Lodos War and into more Goblin Slayer horror movie game kind of shit. But yeah, the first usage of that helmet wakes one of these things up. A big one. Squirming up through this sewer grate. Now, maybe it was a combination of that helmet and the fact that before this, adjacent to that study was this secret passage that led to horror show Surgery, experimenting on whoever Zahzim can get his mitts on, possibly some of the gnome gardeners we met before, to just study and calculate how these brain worms work and find a way to weaponize them and use them against the mind flayers and make the girl that was rescued, named Nala, his own. So, naturally, we take those tools and dump them into the sewer grate, but helmet on is where it decided to squirm up and square up against the party. This thing looks like you'll eat more than brains. My brother built this figure personally and has it proudly sit in a potted plant. So real quick, I'm just going to cut over this video showcasing exactly what nightmare we're up against. Hello, beastie. Oh, that's a disgruntled teenager, all growth spurty and acneed up and shit. Paladin and myself get the close-up to it. Its mouthing is trying to quickly eat one of us to put us in a state of grapple. Gotta take a round to get free or something like that, or kill it quick enough, so. That's the plan before it causes any significant damage and or takes away our element of surprise to maybe ambush this Zahzim and murder him in his sleep. It's never that simple. So we dispatch that. Continuing on, we head further up a flight of stairs to this big circular room with a drop or pit in the middle. And above that sits this huge glacier where an actual time god is trapped in. Being a god or whatever, it's still sort of timed in, timed not in this glacier. But it's a god, so it can still, through our minds, converse with us the location of what can save the day. Put in this combination to get to a tool you will need to end this madness. Paraphrase. You'll definitely know what it is when you see it. We get to said room. It's this museum kind of place of statues, gemstones, insects on the wall. All the time in the world and no hobbies make Zahzim something, except for the fact that the end of the diary is the word time written repeatedly in pen ink bleeding through some of the pages with how maddening frequent. So he's already don't mind if I do. I'm iffy on the details, but I think, like Merrick, he's frustrated at his constant failures to make good on his plan to get Nala / control these mind worms to get revenge. Who, I think the mind flayers, Zahzim mentions how they laugh at him, how they mock his pursuits of time. Is he getting cucked by mind flayers? Is that it? Is that the story? It's probably not, but that might... It's probably furthest from that. Oh, could you imagine? Anyway, back to this museum. The biggest item there is the armory, a new suit for Paladin, and we try on while we go for the obvious thing we want, this beautiful two-handed sword. Our looting or attempt thereof awakens one of the statues in this little museum. With its massive size, gets to close up on a few of us and drops us. Nearly takes out half the entire party. We gotta grab them and get the hell out of here. Only the Artificer can do any significant damage because he somehow fashioned rocket launcher before that existent obvious medieval setting of 10,000 gods. Because it's a giant statue and level 2 monk might break boards, but not a giant rock stone solid statue that can hit and break back. But we get the sword, hasty retreat. Now that ends that day's campaign, so coming back, the party decides now, with our mission to end the madness and the means to do so, let's do a quick side quest to loot even more shit, just keep away from the statue, because we learned from the previous encounter that 1, it's active when something in the room is moved. 2, it also prioritizes who has something in their possession to steal, or who's closest to, like, the exit, something along those lines. Somebody fast enough could probably play keep away, but a person's 40 to 50 to 80 to 100 run speed might not be enough ground to cover if this statue decides, hey, it's running. Now, my character Fai Lon's all, let's just end this thing here and now. Me personally thinking, alright, they're thinking probably what I am. They played enough JRPGs and Castlevania games to know Zahzim's gonna be a load-bearing boss, especially considering this thing exists in a fraction of a second of time. Loot now or forever hold your peace. So, side quest. Let's pull a fucking heist job. Everybody in positions to grab things and book. I say that because Artificer makes off with 3 of the biggest books in a library, clearly laid out differently from the others, so they're super important. I think it's more information on the flayers and the worms, like these were full 8 hours of reading, just one of these bad boys. I scored the least amount of some less than rare gemstones as Fai's pick up, like 5 to 10 GP for just one of them. Some not impressive number. So we looted, get away from the golem. In between all this, monk has obtained 3rd level. We all attained 3rd level. Which for the monk, one of the things is if he has like a free hand and if some kind of projectile comes at him, he can deflect missile. It's like a D10 plus dex modifier or something along those lines to get this missile out of your way, to reduce its damage to you. If you reduce it by 0, it's, it's all in the reflexes, the bottle catch, then, goodbye, Mr. Burton. You can catch and just throw it back. The other big thing for 3rd level is the monastic tradition. How varied is your monk? Do you want to go like way of the something? Couple neat things in there. I think one of them was literally just element bender. Like, oh, you're this high level, you can shoot a gout of flame or something like that. My pick was something, we had an extension, I forget what it's called, it's Tasha's Cauldron or something along those lines, like Tasha's Guide to something. But in that guide, I saw this cool picture of like this monk with behind him had like a crescent moon behind him and like these other arms that came out. This is the beginning of the way of the astral self. So 3rd level, another key point as well. But I can at will and direct at whoever I want to hit with this. Arms come out, and the summon alone is like 2d8 or 2d something force damage. So that was like the only thing that was hitting the rock thing. It's like, I misconstrued that as like, oh, these hands are not physical. I can actually hit this thing maybe. Nah. The summon is force. The hands are still... I know at some point I think the monk gets like hands that can do like diamond body or key empowered strikes. Okay, 6th level. Yeah, that might be. And another monastic tradition feature. I know at like the highest level, astral can like astral projection, like leave the body together or something like that. Crazy monk shit. Which by then you're 20th level monk, you don't need food anymore. It's something like that, and you can like resist poisons and all sorts of things. think it's purity of body. I'm just looking over 5e. You think second level starts separating the herd a little bit. Third level's where the real good shit happens. Oh, that's for the second time we face this statue. But we grab some loot and run. Now we get to end this madness. When we spoke to the Trap Time God, it mentioned 2 combinations for the door to take. The first was the museum, like I mentioned. The second is, once you have this tool, take this combination to the source, and with the power of this sword, take it down. Now, it's a 2-hander, so our fighter gets that one to use, except in this scenario, the thing we were tasked to destroy sits in this constantly moving parts dealy. It's like a clock with many parts, so not so simple as to just walk up and bonk in the thing or whatever. One of us gotta climb into the thing and not get gobsmacked by moving parts, so Fai Lon, with the best decks of the party, can get in that bitch all laser tripwire and just climbing through all that shit. Right in that mug, sword in hand, clang! Hit it hard enough to start the process of shattering this thing. Cracked so far, enough to alert Zahzim himself. Initiative. Party readies up, but Zahzim rolls the highest on that, so his opening move, timey-wimey teleport right next to me. As I ask if my next swing, can I go sideways and go clock and Zahzim? Now, monks aren't exactly proficient in 2-handed swords. I myself not either. Could you imagine monks of the Zweihander order? We've studied the blade. Have you accepted our sensei Donovan Boone and his teachings? That we then later had to kill because he couldn't hold his shit. It's one thing to swing it at something still. Taking a sword and swinging it to an actual combat target, you take penalties for not being super proficient in the sword. I don't know what it would have been for a monk, like a -2, -4 to hit. He's probably like super timey-wimey wizard anyway, so it's like not even try. It's like, here comes swing number 2, now or never. Top sword! Top sword! Tom Sword is a sword. Liberated from the villain's lair. Seriously, he just left it in a museum place thing. But it is now a top sword! Top sword! Dominating the countryside. Dominating the weekends. I dominated this whole campaign here when I rolled a natural fucking 20! Natural fucking 20! As predicted, whole castle comes undone. Time God freed. We're with it in this white void area. If you've ever played Marvel Alliance 1, where Uatu saves you, you know exactly what I mean. Time God in so many words tells us Zahzim's fate. Zahzim was suffering, has suffered, is suffering now. Is suffering always. Yeah, Zahzim's the WWE opening crawl. His suffering is then, now, forever. Portals us back to the village after that. New timeline now. The place that hired us, that whole building, is just gone. Makes one wonder what else changed. Our museum spoils with us, including the aforementioned time sword. Fighter can pocket dimension or pull a teleport once a day or something of that nature. You know, you spend enough time with it, you get familiar and acclimate with things. At a base level trick, she can summon the sword from wherever, so Mjolnir. So we averted a time crisis. Now what? Local gangs in your area. Next week, Tales of Roleplay.